Hello and thanks for joining us on the Signature Show. I am Vin Martin Obiora Ilo. My colleague Mabez Njokwe is out of town. Today we kick off our program by asking this question. Why is it so easy for governors and others to criticize Mr. President for known sins and unknown sins when those that criticize the president sometimes do things that are worse than they accuse the president of? Let me take, for instance, every governor that has conducted a local government election in Nigeria returns 100% victory for his party, except for maybe El-Rufai in Kaduna, who considered some local governments. Is that democracy? If, for instance, the president ensures that every election conducted in Nigeria is won by the APC, what kind of democracy are we going to be witnessing? This is one of the reasons we are focusing on the local government system today. The governors decide who the local government chairmen are going to be. They decide that they win the election. They decide that they're inaugurated. They decide how much money of their money that they get. And of course, they decide when they are kicked out or when they are suspended. So where is the autonomy? Even the breach of the autonomy for local government starts even before the man takes office. So today we'll be focusing on the autonomy for local governments and local government funding. Should they get their money directly from the federal government, or should government continue to pass that money through the state governments, where they now say they have either joint account or they have a template for what they should do? Of course, I heard Wike saying that they have a template for what the local government should do. Can't they be left to do their job? Can't they be left to use their brain? First of all, can't we even allow competent people to occupy those positions so they can make, informed decisions? We'll be focusing on the local government system today, and we will have a former local government chairman in Akwa Ibom State. His name is Honorable Aneko Akpan. We also go to the streets to ask Nigerians what they feel about this debate, this controversy about the local government system, its autonomy and funding. Well, there is a group in the United States that says they have a solution to the bandits, to Boko Haram, to herders, to anything that brings conflict and violence in any country. They say they have a technology they call the Invincible Defense Technology. It has something to do with psychology, it has something to do with the brain, it has something to do with the persons. But the wonderful thing about this technology is that you don't need to shoot, you don't need to fire a shot. No shot is fired. It's just something that has to do with the psychology, the brain, the people. And one of the promoters of this science is a man called Dr. David Leffler. He's the executive director at the Center for Advanced Military Science in Iowa, USA. Well, he spoke with us on the Signature Show, and we'll be serving you that in a moment. But don't go away. Signature Show continues in a moment.
This is SignatureTV.org. Breaking the news. Following the news. Analyzing the news. 247 round the clock. All on the go. SignatureTV.org. News in your pocket.
David Leffler, who has a PhD, is one of the main people that are advocating for what they call invincible defense technology. And he and his colleagues at the Center for Advanced Military Science in Iowa, USA, they have been on it, researching it for a couple of years. Welcome back. This is the Signature Show. Let me now go to that interview conducted by my colleague Mwabezi Njoku with Honorable Aniekon Akpan, a former local government chairman in Akwa Ibom State. Hello, let me welcome you to the conversation segment of the Signature Show this Sunday. Now, in the past 3 weeks or thereabout, there has been a very strong conversation in the country concerning our local governments. As a matter of truth, both Algon and Nolge are spalling for action over a bill in the National Assembly seeking to remove local governments from the Constitution and make them units to be created by the states as their need arises and in a number they want. Before now, people have described local governments as corruption subheads for the governors. But did the Constitution make it so? How have local governments become so contentious as to warrant a lawmaker saying, remove them from the Constitution, remove them as federating units, and allow the states to create them as the need arises? This afternoon, I have somebody who's gone through the process, first as a councillor, then as a local government chairman. Today he's on his own, but he knows all the goings on, how it was before, and how it is now, and why the contention has arisen. This afternoon, I have asked my guest, Honorable Chief Aniekon Akpan. He is former chairman of Eket local government area of Akwa Ibom State. He was also a councillor before he became the chairman. Honorable, you are welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me this afternoon.
Now, let me take it from the statement that local governments are corruption subheads. Governors and state governments do what they please with them. The Constitution provides for elected local governments. Go across the country today and you see that majority of them have appointed local governments. Local governments are supposed to get allocation from the federation account. Today, local governments get allocations from the states. We'll go to tell you how that happens. Local governments are supposed to be in charge of primary education, primary health, markets, rural roads, and such other little things within the local communities. Today, if you see any good road in local governments, it is done by the state government. Primary health staff are paid by state governments. Primary education teachers are paid by the state governments. So local governments just seem to be standing in name and not in function, just being used as conduit for money for governors to spend as it pleases them. Do you agree that local governments have become corruption subheads for state governments?
Well, for me, you've mentioned the fact that elections are held for local government to produce local government chairmen.
It should be held.
Yes, but what we have is not election but selection. So I wanted to put that straight. No state in the federation conducts local government election. The only thing they end up doing is to do selection and ensure that their cronies are there as chairmen and councillors. That's why I don't know if it bothers you if, for example, if Kogi State for today, let me use Kogi as an example, conducts a local government election. The state governor is APC, yes, Yaya Bello. And if a local government election is conducted, I don't know how many local governments they have, but it will be 100% chairman APC and 100% councillors APC. That happens, that's what you have all over the country. And I don't think that is an election. If you ask me, it's just a selection process to keep people so that they will be able to perfect their plan, which is to misapply and misappropriate local government funds. You've also said that state government pay salaries of teachers. You also said that state government also pay salaries of primary health care staff. That's not true. That's not true. All those funds are gotten from the allocated funds from local government.
So why can't the local government pay those salaries themselves?
No, the funds gets into the state local government joint account, which is not in the control of. If these funds were to hit the local government accounts, where the head of service and the director of admin are signatories to that account, it will be better managed. But it gets to the state local government joint account, which once it gets there, you know, it is now in the control of the governor through his crony, who is the local government commissioner and the commissioner for finance. So that's the problem we are having in local government system.
You've agreed with me, really, that then local governments have become sub-heads of corruption for the governors.
It speaks for itself. I don't need to agree. That's what is going on.
Now, let us look at the politics of it. There are those, in fact, the bill in the National Assembly, the proponent of that bill is seeking to create a balance. That is the national conversation. It's in the open that the number of local government areas in the north are more than the number of local government areas in the south. The worst case that's always cited is that Kano State has more local government areas than Lagos. Yet Lagos has both the need and the population. And they say creation of local government was willfully inserted into the constitution as a means of ensuring that the North got more funds from the federation account than the South. And therefore, one of the objectives, one of the demands, or one of the reasons for sponsoring the present bill is to remove that inequity. Do you think the politics of local government is enough to warrant removing local governments as federating units?
Well, for me, I am an apostle of the fact that it pays one, you know, to be proactive, you know, rather than reacting to an event. Why am I saying what I'm saying? I accept the fact there are 774 local governments. The South has about 300 and something, and while the North has about 400 and something. But the point, you know, I keep that keeps bothering me is that at least I have a fair idea where we are coming from. The reforms that gave rise to what we have as a local government system at the moment started in about 75, 76, when a Southerner, the person of Olusegun Obasanjo, was head of state. That's when that committee, that Ibrahim Dasuki committee, was put in place. And so, why were we Southerners, you know, not able to look ahead? You know, why are we reacting? You know, why are we always reacting, you know, to events? You know, because at that time, you know, Lagos State and Kano, they almost have the same population. And the prime criteria that was used at that time was population-wise. So why is it that Lagos has 20-something and Kano has 44? You know, I think we should start playing the politics of having to look at events tomorrow. You know, if you now look at the same situation, is it not the same country where how many states did we have when Gowon was there? Was it not 12 states? It was 12 states. But when Murtala now came, there was that distortion, you know, changed it to 19, which gave the Northerners more states than us. And I don't know why we should not also start playing the politics of having to, you know, take proactive action rather than every time you'll be reacting. So for me, let's see how the bill pans out, you know, but we'll live and see.
Honorable, do you think there's a sense in asking for the scrapping of those local government to create a level playing field and remove the inequality? Do you think there is reason, good sense in it?
Do I have to scrap the local government system completely? No, I will not. I won't support that sort of position.
Now, but let me tell you the suggestion. Allow local governments to be creation of states. Remove them from taking federal allocation. If a state thinks that it needs 3,000 local governments and it has the funds to sustain them, so be it. But that the way it is a means of making money available to some people more than others, creating inequity. And it creates some annoyance.
Well, we would have to live with that sort of, you know, there is, if you ask me, there is, we don't have a society that is perfect, if you ask me. And all what we're doing, we are working towards perfection, you know. But to say that that we closed our hands and we're not proactive, and after which we want to run after an event, I don't think it makes sense.
In other words, we should live with inequity.
No, I'm not saying we should live with it. We should work towards being proactive now and in the near future.
Well, we're not going to create more local government. For instance, there are also those, not within the bill though, they say, okay, if we want to make local governments part of the federating unit, we should then create more local government in certain areas. For instance, Lagos needs more local governments. For instance, Rivers needs more local government. They have cited a number of states that require more local government to create a balance.
No, I don't think. Well, the balance is also good, but I think we are missing the point. The point is the problems in the local government system at the moment, whether there is imbalance, inequality, or whatever we call it. The problems is the governors. Okay, for example, let me take my local government and my state. I am from Meket local government in Akwa Ibom. For example, in a given month, if the federation account were given 156 million, for example, excluding the 10% IGR that the states ought to pay to the local government system, which they don't pay, you know. But let me restrict myself with what comes from the FAC. You know? In the 156 million, it's expected that the teacher salary, which is about not more than 30 million, primary health care and local government workers, you know, maybe another 30 million. Maybe 1% is given out to local government service commission for training and all that. Pay the traditional rulers and all that. So at the end of the day, you shouldn't be able to, if those overheads are taken out, you shouldn't be able to get more than 80, 90 million. And a governor feels comfortable to now at the end or after taking all those, now gives the local government 2.5 million. Does that have to do with it? Has that anything to do with inequality? Let's solve the first problem first, you know, which has to do with, because if you ask me my take, the problems we are having in this country is that illegal association called Nigerian Governors Forum. That's the association. Because even where they differ, different members of different political parties, that when it comes to perpetuating illegalities like that, all of them would agree. All of them would agree. So the problem is not there. Even if you remove the inequality and still have the NGF, you know, where they agree to perpetuate all these crimes, you know, I don't think we are getting anywhere. I recall when I was a councillor at that time, we used to have what at the end of maybe at the end of every federation account, the local government councils will go to the various pay offices that is closest to them and collect their check and pay into the local government account. Go to your local government at that time and see what they were able to achieve, and now take it side by side with what you have now. You would see it's like life and death. So the problem is not this inequality you are talking of. The problem is the attitude of our governors, who feel they should take local government funds and use it as pocket monies. At that time, we didn't used to have, when I was a councillor, we didn't used to have a Ministry of Local Government Affairs. We used to have a Bureau of Chieftaincy Affairs. You know, there was no local government. So why this creation? You know, you create it so that they represent you in committing these illegalities. So the problem is not in inequality. Even if you change it and now have 774, divide it to everybody has 300 and something, 300, and you still have this crop of people as governors, you know, then we cannot get it right. We can't get it right.
Well, Honorable, there are those also who are canvassing that the local governments have failed in the objective for which they were set up, bringing government and development closer to the communities. Today, local governments are not developing markets. They're not developing markets. They're not building new roads. They're not repairing primary schools. They're not building new clinics. They're not developing markets.
What would they use to develop all this? We are saying the same thing. We are saying that if you at that time, I'm sorry taking you back to 1993. I'm sorry taking you back. At all times, I would always, because we should know where we are coming from to also know where we are going to. You know, at that time, I don't know if people appreciate there was state government. What happens was early in the morning, people would troop from the various wards down to the local government councils headquarters, wanting to see the chairman of council, wanting to complain, those that say, oh, the slippery hill in my area, so thing in my area. But now everybody appreciates the fact, you know, that what are you going to do there? For example, I've told you my local government where I come from. If you are given 2.5 million naira, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? So nobody goes there, you know. Even if you see a chairman pass or a councillor pass, what are you going to do with it? Nothing. He cannot even help himself.
Yeah, Honorable.
No, I'm saying the fact.
I understand, but there's the argument that the quality of manpower in the local government areas is so bad that they cannot even execute the functions, help to implement the functions of local government.
What quality are you talking about? Why were we able to perform in 1990 to 93? So what quality are you talking about? Is it not the works department? We had a crop of engineers there. The primary health care, we had a couple of doctors. So which manpower are we talking about? So when I hear people talk about some of the governors, you know, who are faceless, if you ask me, talk about manpower, they are being economical with the truth. Which manpower are we talking about? It's their attitude that is killing the local government system. There's no dread in manpower. There isn't.
Okay. Honorable, it appears this conversation seems to be establishing that indeed there's a problem with the local government structure the way it is.
Yes.
The governors seem to have a constitutional window to toy with local governments, especially this joint account stuff, which is provided by the Constitution. How do we resolve it?
I think that's one. I think that's one. If you ask me, that's one error. You know, even though I won't completely throw away the constitution as promulgated by Abdul Salam at that time, but that aspect I cannot come to terms because that insertion was not there initially. So whoever went and did it, I think will be regretting at this time that he didn't do the nation well. So I think the way to go is even at the state level, the local government, the state legislature and the state judiciary, you know what is going on at the moment. So an amendment had been duly done, passed into law and all that, you know, that funds should go directly to the state and the state legislature and the state judiciary. You can see what the governors are doing now, you know. When I say they are the problem, you will bear me witness. Because if something had been done, you are now saying, oh, I would implement it in May. I think that's funny to hear. So why May? What is going to happen in May? Is the world going to come to an end? So I think the way to go is we are hoping, for example, in my state, I was reading in the social media one house member that I would not believe that could ask questions. So they are beginning to ask questions. And that's the beauty, because the financial autonomy to the state and state judiciary and legislature will now give the legislators an opportunity to ask questions. So I think if this round of amendment is now done and sent, you need the concurrence of at least the two-thirds of the state houses of assembly to have it passed. If it now gets, you'll be surprised at the number. Everybody will vote with two hands. Because you don't need to, at the moment, you cannot say a thing, because it will need, if you want to travel, you have to carry your voucher to the governor to sign. And if you are such that holds an opinion, he will not sign for you. So the way to go is to have that thing amended, remove that clause, you know, that state-local government joint account. It's a fraudulent arrangement. And it's an arrangement that the governors are comfortable. A fraudulent arrangement that gives them opportunity, you know, to do whatever they want to do with local government funds and stagnate its development. There are the problems with the local government system, and I can say it and say it anyway.
Yeah, but there is also those in the academia, those in the universities, those dealing with federations and political arrangements across the world, seem to argue that Nigeria's case, Nigeria's structure is rather funny, in the sense that municipal councils all over the world are never part of the central government. They are ancillary base level government that draw their money not from the center, but from their states. And they do a number of things to generate fund. This Nigeria's new arrangement seems not to fall squarely into classical federating units of many federations around the world. Are we thinking better than other federations?
No, for me, you know, whatever system we run, I'm not conversant, you know, to speak about whether it's classic or not. I wouldn't bother myself in such arguments. But my argument is, funds are made available to the 774 local government councils. Are we now saying that it is right, you know, to send these funds to the local government, to the state's joint account, for the governors to use as pocket monies? I think that's the argument that interests me. For the classical thing, I do not know. When I hear, for example, the governor, I heard the governor of Ekiti, Kayode Fayo, yes, somebody I respect so well, and I like hearing him all the time. And when I hear him talk about, It's not local government are not federating units. They shouldn't get money. Right? You've not talked about how the ones that you've gotten, how they were applied. And nobody has disputed this. I've stated, for example, in my local government, I've stated it clearly. I want anybody, I want the governor of my state to come and say, oh, in a given month you say they got 150. This is how I spent it. It's not their money, it's my money. I'm entitled to know how these funds are spent. I think that's the argument. The argument is not classic or non-classic. The argument is funds have been sent to the local government system. How were they spent? I think that's the argument.
Let me move this conversation along that line. The Federal Ministry of Finance has consistently been publishing allocation to local governments. Can the citizen and should the citizen begin to query their local governments to establish whether these funds were received or not? Because the governors may in fact say, look, we didn't touch any of these funds. You can see the monies, the accounts, the publications from the Federal Ministry of Finance said they're located to local governments.
No,
the local government should account for them.
No, the argument you are saying is, see, as much as possible, try and prevent a situation. For example, live in your house. If when we were growing up with my grandmom or so, ensure that, there was something they normally put fish inside, If you want it to be safe, yes, you put the fish inside the metal stuff. You don't keep it outside. So we've kept the local government funds outside. That's why we are complaining. So take these monies first, get it to the local government account. How difficult is it, at that time for the system to ensure that, for example, in my local government, let us have your account number. For example, if you have account in Union Bank, for example, at the end of you pay in money to that account. The chairman is not a signatory to that account. It's the director of finance and the head of local government services that are signatories. The chairman only confirms those checks. So send those monies there first and pay in. We now know, for example, in my own state, we are having an IGR of not less than 3 billion monthly, So that is simple to calculate. That is 10% of 3 billion. It's 300 million. So have a pattern of sharing the 300 million to the 31 local government and allow those other monies that comes from FAC to get into the local government account. Let's see if there will not be any difference. Let's see if the people will not hold the chairman accountable. That's where we are. We're not talking, does that one has to do, is there any classic in that? That you can't, if it's 3 billion, you can't calculate and know that that's 300 million. I'm not very fast in mathematics, but I know 10% of 3 billion is 300 million. So you share it amongst the 31 local government and allow that money that came from FAC to get into the account of the local government. So are you now saying that that one needs expertise to be able to know that the teacher salary is this much, local government this one is this one? What administrative competence does it need to do that? And you can be assured that since you, the head of government, who is the chairman, only confirms the check, you can be assured that no civil servant, at least over 99% of the civil servant, none would allow you not to pay the local government staff first, not to pay the nurses. Nobody would allow you to do it. So why do you keep these monies in the various, with their cronies, the commissioners for local government and commissioners for finance? And you misapply the money and use it as pocket money to give your girlfriends.
Honorable, that's a challenge even arising from the scenario you've painted. If you go around the country today, many local government staff are being owed salaries. And that is one of the reasons people are saying, since the state governments have taken charge, why allow the system that will make a worker go to work for 3, 4, 6 months without getting paid remain in place?
Not, for me, you would not. I won't take delight to enter into discussing a subject matter. I don't know why they are owed. I don't know what the problem is.
Because they say the system is inefficient.
What system?
The local government system is inefficient.
What system is inefficient?
The system that cannot pay its staff.
So would you, if you are able to, if we are able to, I can speak, I can speak confidently about what is happening in my local government and in Akwa Ibom. I can speak confidently about it because I have an idea of what is going on. So you wouldn't say that maybe if there are a few local governments that there are issues, it then means the situation should continue the way it is. It will not be fair. In any system, there must definitely be some problems. No doubt about that. But let's weigh between these funds getting into the local government account directly and where we are at the moment. Which one is advantageous? Which one pays the larger people the more? I think getting into the local government account because if it gets to the local government account, the state governments will not have the powers to tell the director of finance, and because before the chairman gets the money to whoever said it, that's what they call them. They say it said so. And most of the time, this you don't know who the ete are. So I think it is more advantageous for these funds to get to the local government account first.
Okay, Honorable, let us begin to cap this conversation.
Okay.
What is your position, therefore, on this bill that has gone into the second reading, making an attempt to scrap local governments and make them responsibility of states? Do you support it?
No, I don't. I don't. I would think let us tinker, because if you look at the Constitution as it is at the moment, it doesn't speak. There's not so much had been said about local government system. So let's get into amending it such that remove the clause of state local government joint account, because that's the major problem that we're having at the moment. And let's ensure that let's take the system back to the pre-era of 1990 to 93. So let's see how it was done at that time. What made it to work at that time, and if there are adjustments in terms of the inequality, that can be worked out. For example, I don't think there's any Nigerian, that means well for the country that would say that the Southeast, as it is right for them to have just 5 states, So there could be this breaching of inequality, to get us to near parity. It may not be 50-50. So that one can be worked out, and I think once it's brought to the table, everybody would see reason.
Can be done for local government.
Yes. So for anybody to now think of the problem begins in scrapping, because what you now mean is, if you say local government should be jettisoned, it means that transfer all the funds to the state government. That's what you are saying. For example, even though it's not part of the discussion, I take you to the state where I come from. We are the highest in terms of 13% derivation. At the beginning of every year, Mobil Producing Nigeria, which is a major player in the oil and gas industry, gives us nothing less than 30 billion naira for capital projects. We get payee tax of not less than 8 billion naira annually from Mobil. We now have ground rates. It used to be about 500 million annually, but it's been increased at the moment. We now have an IGR of not less than 3 billion naira. 3 billion naira every month. Now, go to Akwa Ibom as it is now. Yesterday, I saw Christian Association of Nigeria write congratulating the governor, listing the projects he has done. Part of it is, of his achievement, is recruitment of 1,000 teachers. And we have one flyover. If you are conversant with you, a coming man, was started over 5 years ago. If you go see the foundation, go to, Because I'm happy that Akwa Ibom is also a PDP state like Rivers State. Go to Rivers, see what Wike is doing, and go to Akwa Ibom. So you now feel this monumental failure. You now want a situation where you now transfer these funds to our governor to misapply the way he's doing. I think that would be most unfair. That would be most unfair. We are not getting fair. We are not being fair, getting fair judgment from the government of the state at the moment. I will talk about. I would be glad if you invite me to share more light on that again some other time. Yes. Yes.
Honorable Chief Anyeka Akpan, former chairman, Eket local government area of Akwa Ibom State. His position is very simple. The problem is not with the local government structure. The problem is with the attitude of the governors and how they've applied that clause of local government state joint account. If that problem is resolved, then the real value of local governments will show. That to summarize what he said. But there are those who are contending that, as I've said in the course of this conversation, that local governments as federated units in the first instance say misnomer. He says no. What we should bother about is what is working for us. Whether we are creating more local governments or not, whether I call them federated units or not, the way they are, make them to serve the people. That should be the move. On your behalf, let me thank Honorable Chief Anyeka Akpan, former chairman, Eket local government area of Akwa Ibom State. Honorable, thank you very much for coming to the conversation.
Thank you for having me. I would be very glad to, even at short notice, to come and share my thoughts on it.
Thank you very much. My name remains Mwabo Njoku. The conversation continues next Sunday. For today, good afternoon.
We'll now go to the streets to get the opinions of Nigerians on this unending controversy, local government autonomy, local government funding. Should state governments allow the local governments to run? Nigerians have an opinion about that, and we serve it to you right now.
Do not stand, because the primary purpose of establishing the local government is to bring government closer to the people. So at some point we discover that it's difficult to reach to the state level if there are issues at the downtrodden at the local level, not to talk of the federal level. So local government is important, and I think the necessary thing should be done, making sure the local government stands like every other tier of the government, like the state and the federal.
The issue of scrapping the local government is just a myopic thinking, and it's just for selfish interest. And I'll advise our legislators to see it as something that they should not tamper with, because nobody in this country is existing without a root.
It's as the same thing whether you say a local government is gone, is not existing, or even if it's existing, it doesn't serve its purpose. So the only thing personally I feel is that the local government should be encouraged and should be improved and be given the right and power to do what they are supposed to do.
Local government is very, very important as far as this country is concerned, and there's anybody, any reasonable thinking person should not support the striving of local government, because they have a purpose and they are the nearest to the grassroots.
Yes, I talked about invincible defense technology. What is invincible defense technology? Dr. David Leffler says if our defense forces adopt invincible defense technology, we would overcome our insurgency challenges. We will overcome Boko Haram. We will overcome the bandits. We will overcome the herdsmen. We will overcome all the people that are bringing violence to Nigeria. So sit back and watch the interview I had with Dr. David Leffler. Dr. David Leffler, you're welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
What is IDT?
Invincible defense technology is very aptly named. The word invincible means undefeated. Defense means to protect, to defend. And technology is basically applied science. So this is an applied science that a military leader could use to actually prevent enemies from arising in the first place. Basically, it gives the warrior the opportunity to have victory before war. The great Chinese philosopher and military strategist Sun Tzu talked about the supreme art of war is not to fight. But this is even beyond that. Basically, it involves the use of advanced practices of transcendental meditation that the military or some other group, it could be children or at a school or whatever it may be, they practice these techniques twice a day, and they can actually alleviate the social stress that starts enemies from arising in the first place. So basically, they can prevent terrorism, they can prevent conflict and war. And this has been proven by scientific research. For instance, the latest study that was done was published in the Studies of Asian Social Science, and it showed that a large group practice of these programs in Cambodia between 1993 and 2008 was associated with a 96.2% decline in socio-political violence in that war-torn country as compared to the violence in the preceding 3 years. So basically, the likelihood that such a thing could happen is just you can't even think of the numbers. It's better as in you would get it going to a casino and gambling.
Okay, let me ask you, Dr. Leffler, does this have to do with military hardware, military software, or is it something that is psychological?
It deals with using a brain-based technology. So basically, you know, right now I'm talking to you via the internet. We're using the electromagnetic force in a sense to communicate. There's 4 fundamental forces of nature besides electromagnetism. There's gravity, there's a strong force, and there's the weak force. And historically, our military technologies have been based mostly on the chemical type things and the electromagnetic type things. But there are other forces of nature. And basically, you see this chart that's behind me here? It's a good little thing. You see right here, these are the various forces of nature that I just described. But this technology works on this level here of what Einstein called the unified field. Basically, it's 33 minus 33 centimeters. It's the strongest force available. If you have a technology that based here, it supersedes all these other technologies here. So it's the most powerful technique that a military person can use to defend a country. And actually, militaries have done this already. This approach was used by one of our advisors at the Center for Advanced Military Science, Lieutenant General Villamil. He used it to end the war in Ecuador with Peru. It was used by President Chissano in Mozambique by his defense minister, General Tobias Dai. He used this technique there. He created these large groups, and basically Mozambique was a country that had been at war for some 30 years, and finally they were able to have peace. Their economy blossomed, all sorts of positive things happened, crime rates went down. So this is something that the military of Nigeria could use to end the war with Boko Haram and actually prevent enemies from arising like that in the future.
How can the Nigerian Armed Forces implement IDT? How can they fuse it into their operations?
It would be very, very simple to do, of course, with proper COVID protocols to prevent that type of problem. But basically, they would have to be trained in the advanced techniques of transcendental meditation. They would practice these techniques twice a day in group, in the morning, usually before the morning meal, and in the evening before the evening meal. The rest of the time they could devote to their other military duties. And so basically, by practicing these things twice a day in group, they can prevent enemies from arising. The cost would be very reasonable, probably less than the cost of a fighter plane. And as I was saying, basically they would need a group of just a couple of hundred to protect Nigeria. But why just not, this is already being done in other places. Let me use an analogy here. In the 1960s and 50s, we were having, United States and the Soviet Union were having the race for inner space, and we were trying to see who would be the first person to put somebody on the moon. Now, the Russians initially had very, very good success and were beating the Americans, but they started all these things and we came from behind. So in situation, Nigeria's analogy here is, this is already being done by militaries. This is the most powerful defense system in the world. But why just, if you're going to do it, why just do Nigeria? Why don't you create a group of, say, 15,000 and actually prevent wars from happening in other places? They could prevent wars in Libya. They could prevent other wars in the Middle East. There are situations all over the world where there is terrorism and conflict. The Nigerian military become the most powerful military in the world and make the history books. The military leader would do this, would be more famous than Alexander the Great, because instead of fighting wars, actually preventing wars, but not only preventing wars, preventing enemies from arising. So it would be very, very easy to do. The training would just take a couple of months, and they could still do their other military duties. And even what's even more good about this whole situation is a lot of warriors are having troubles with post-traumatic stress. Well, trouble with that. There's research, people on my staff who have done research that shows that after just 5 months of practicing basic transcendental meditation, 50% of the post-traumatic symptoms are gone. So basically that would be one benefit. Also, military leaders and their people would think more clearly. They'd have higher intelligence quotient. There's all kinds of hundreds of peer-reviewed research that would show benefits to the military members themselves. So it would be win-win for everybody.
Yeah, Dr. Leffler, one would want to ask, if IDT is so successful, why did the United States not use it in a place like Iraq or use it in Syria?
Very good question. The thing is that when any new technology comes out, it takes a while before it gets adopted. Like, for instance, in our military, they had wanted to have nuclear submarines. And there was all kinds of people saying, nah, we can't do that. It's not a good idea. And the person, basically the admiral, who was the big advocate of this, had to advocate for years and years. He says it takes great patience to bring a new idea into fruition. And this is the thing that's been going on here. But obviously it's being done. The people are going to they pay, taxes to pay the military to do their job, to protect themselves. And it's the duty of the military to use the most advanced technology available. This is the most advanced technology. And someday, if military leaders don't do this, it's going to be their careers online because they didn't see this coming. And that's going to happen in the United States as well. But I should mention one thing here, a positive about the United States. We are getting the foot in the door with, I was mentioning earlier about post-traumatic stress. Our military and the Veterans Administration, who treats people after they leave the military, because of going to all these wars we've had in the last 20 years or so, they're suffering from post-traumatic stress, and something has to be done about it. So the Department of Defense has put up a lot of money to study this. It's been a long study, what's called a longitudinal study, 5 years. The results have been very promising. And so the foot are getting in the door there. But this is a chance now. Nigeria is in the situation, maybe in a sense, that the United States was with the Soviet Union, where the Soviet Union beat us. Well, here's a chance for Nigeria not only to beat its adversaries to this very, very powerful technique, but actually create world peace, become world famous. And some, Patton used to talk about, when he talked to his warriors, that, well, tell me what you did during World War II. And he said, I'm not going to use the language he used, but he says, you don't want to tell them you shoveled horse manure. You want to tell them you actually did something. And so here's a situation where the military leaders, when they, years from now, when history is written, and they have grandchildren on their lap, they can tell them, I created world peace.
Dr. David Leffler, Executive Director, Center for Advanced Military Science, I'd like to thank you for your time and for sharing your insights with us.
It was my pleasure. Hope we can do it again sometime.
Thank you. Well, that's our package for today. Thanks for joining us. Next Sunday, I'm sure my colleague and I will be back here to bring you another interesting edition of your signature show. I am Vin Martin Obiora Ilo on behalf of all my colleagues. Thanks for watching and keep a date with us next week. Also go to our social media platforms. First of all, you can go to our website www.signaturetv.org for this program and other programs and other activities of Signature TV. Bye for now.